Year 2010, I wrote a book entitled Your Church is Too Small. The emphasis of that book was upon a theme I called missional ecumenism. The word missional carried the idea that God designed the church, the people of God, together to carry out his mission through community. They were to carry out this mission through the actions of God's love through them, poured out into the world through love for their neighbors and one another. Jesus said in John 20:21, "As the Father has sent me, so send I you." He sends us, not as individuals, but as a community in love with him. In this time of distancing and sheltering and churches not able to meet together publicly, I've asked myself, how do we do that? It's not just a virtual activity online that we privately do in our homes, as valuable as that has proven to be. No, mission is carrying on the work of Christ's redemption in us and through us. And through all of this, the goal of Christ is to redeem humanity, to bring all things to oneness in Christ, to redeem the world, thus resulting, as the Revelation says, in the new heavens and the new earth. Now, we're living through a time that has been called by many the new normal. I think what that term means is that things will not be the way they were on January 1st or even February 1st of this year 2020. We're not going back to a world that we lived in comfortably, to a church that we were comfortable to attend, to a job that we were comfortable working in. Life will not be the same. We don't know what it will be like. We don't know how much will change, but that it will change, we can be absolutely certain. I've been reflecting on some of the ways I think we will see this change. I had a conversation last week with a missionary student worker who's on a campus in New England, college campus. He's worked on college campuses for decades. And he said to me, "John, the work that we do will never, ever be the same again after this crisis. The cost of education is too high. The time that it takes to shelter, to go to class, and all that's involved in traditional college life will never be the same." I think he's right. I think many schools will thus fail or close or become something that they've never imagined they would become. Now, I think the same is true for many of our churches. Frankly, most of our churches are in one form or another dying. Institutionally, the Spirit has not left entirely. We're still in Christ, but we're failing. And we're still carrying debts and burdens that we cannot meet in our present circumstances unless something really radical changes. Our churches can't be the same. So I wonder, how are we going to come together? How are we going to work to bear each other's burdens? How are we going to missional and evangelize and disciple and educate people when our churches are so polarized and apart from one another? How are we going to do this if we can't gather in crowds? We're already trying to discover how that works. What's happening to the elderly among us, many of whom are living as single widows or widowers? Well, we know they're suffering. What about the young? They're depressed, they're discouraged, their future looks very bleak in compared to what it was just a few months ago. Depression has increased, especially for those who already had a propensity to depression. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's become very popular on television and through his sane and reasonable appeals to us as public, has recently said that he hopes there are two things that will change and change forever. Number one, he says that we will wash our hands the way we've been instructed. And number two, he says that we will stop shaking hands the way we do. I've wondered about the second one, as well as the first one. And I've wondered about schools and churches and communities and families and gatherings. And are we willing to actually try to do these things to be the new normal? If we're missional people, I believe we will. And I believe we can expect to see changes that are good for the mission of Christ, good for the church, and thus good for all of us who seek to follow Jesus in the world.